I'm Franz Pear with Cyber Skyline, and today we are going to be learning about shift ciphers and how you can break them. So the first thing that we want to do is start with what shift ciphers even are. So these are one of the classical cryptography methods that have been used for thousands of years now. And it's a very easy mechanism to understand. To encrypt, you simply shift each character in the message X many positions in the alphabet. So that's customizable for how many positions you want to move. And to decrypt, you do the exact opposite. You move that many characters, but you go in the opposite direction. And because there really isn't anything more than that, there's no sort of encryption key. It's really based on just the amount of the cipher. It's pretty insecure. So, I mean, modern computers nowadays, they can run very quickly through all the possible shift amounts in just a fraction of a second, and they can decrypt the message in that way. So it really doesn't take much to break one of these. But you might hear shift ciphers sometimes referred to as Caesar ciphers. So that happens because he was one of the people that kind of popularized this. Very well known that he was using these shift ciphers with his generals to communicate privately, quote unquote. But you know, time has passed, and we have much better ways to encrypt our messages today. So let's take a look at an example of doing encryption by hand. And in this example, what we're going to do is shift each character left by 1. So on the left side over here, we have a plain text message. That's the CAB on the left side. And in the center, we have a mapping showing what a shift left for each character would look like. So the A turns to a Z, the B turns to an A C turns to a B. You can see here that when we shifted left, because A is the first character in the alphabet, we looped around and we went all the way to the end of the alphabet to Z. So shift ciphers do this to kind of provide full continuity for the entire key space. So, another thing to note is that the shift would apply to the entire alphabet, but I'm only showing the first 5 letters of the alphabet just to keep things simple for this example. If we start to encrypt this, the first letter here is C, and you can see that I highlighted the C turns into a B after you shift it left by 1. So now in our encrypted message, we've got a B. We move on to the next character, that's the A. We shift that left, that becomes a Z. That's our second character. Then now we're on the last character here. We've got the B, which shifts left 1, becomes the A. And now we have our fully encrypted message. So what you can see is that we took the plain text message CAB, C-A-B, we shifted every letter down 1 in the alphabet. This became B-Z-A. Now, another thing to note here, I'm using the terminology shift left, shift right to kind of indicate the direction in the alphabet. It's also common that you might hear people saying shift up and shift down. So shifting up means like going further into the alphabet, and down going backwards in the alphabet. I've also seen people very frequently use numbers instead of directions, like ordinal directions. So you could represent the shift to the right as a positive number and the shift to the left as a negative number. So this shift left 1 would be the equivalent of a shift of -1. The negative there indicating the direction being left. So we just encrypted this message. The next thing to do here is to decrypt the message. And to do that, we need to do the exact opposite of what we just did in the encryption. So in the encryption, we shifted everything to the right. We shifted everything to the left by 1. So now we need to do the opposite. And actually, I realized here I made a small typo. The right shift 1 is just a shift 1, not a shift -1. So by shifting to the right 1, we are going to undo what we just did with the encryption. So to do this decryption, what I've done is I've flipped the direction on the arrows that we have in the center over here. And this will show us the direction we need to go in the opposite way. And so like we did before with the encryption, we start with the first letter, that's the B. So we've got the B, this shifts to the right by 1, that becomes a C. Then we have the Z, that shifts right to the 1, that now becomes A. And then we have the A over here, that shifts by 1, and that becomes a B. So now we've gotten back to the cab, right? We turned the BZA, the encrypted ciphertext. We went back doing the opposite direction. We went to do a shift right of 1. And now we've arrived back at the decrypted message, the plain text. That's the cab, the CAB. Now, we did this by hand, kind of slow, and we only looked at 5 characters in the alphabet. If you are going to be looking at the whole alphabet, you're going to have way more. And it can be cumbersome to do this by hand. A much quicker way to do this, especially if you're going to be working with shift ciphers for a longer message, is to use a tool to help you do this translation. So you don't have to do each character one at a time. Something I would recommend that you use is Cyber Chef. There are a ton of different tools on the internet that can do this type of function for you. Cyber Chef includes a bunch of other tools. So this shift cipher is just one of the tools that's included in it. And oftentimes, if you're looking at cryptography, you might be looking at other ciphers, other forms of encryption. And so if you're going to be looking for tools that can help you with more than just the shift cipher, then Cyber Chef can help with that. Now within Cyber Chef, the recipe that they have for this cipher is called ROT13. That stands for rotation 13, and that will perform a alphabetic shift operation. And the reason why it's called ROT13 is because it defaults to a shift amount of 13. And the choice of 13 is because that's exactly halfway through the alphabet. So if you run a shift 13 or a ROT13 twice, you don't have to worry about is it left or right 13? Is it positive or negative 13? If you run it twice, it will get you back to the start of where you were before. So that way there's no ambiguity in terms of which direction. So that's why it's defaulted. But you do have the ability to change the value of the shift. So let's go ahead and actually try that out with a real challenge here. All right, so I've transported us into our practice environment, and we have a challenge here where we need to decrypt this ciphertext over here. So I'm just going to go and copy that and then head over to Cyber Chef. I'm going to put this as my input, and I'm going to search for the ROT13 recipe. And by default, it shifts by 13, as I said. And actually, that just happens to be the exact amount that this message was using. So this got us the plain text message immediately, right? This is definitely way faster than following those arrows to decrypt everything one at a time. Now, in this case, we did get kind of lucky that it happened to be a shift of 13. It could have been a shift of a different amount. So if that's the case, if you want to brute force it by hand, you could just come in here and you can just type in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just keep trying different values until you can get it. That is only if this truly is a shift cipher that you're looking at, right? So it's entirely possible you might try to use this ROT13 to decrypt a message and then it's not actually a shift cipher, in which case you'll never get it. But it's a relatively quick thing that you can do if you're pretty confident that what you're looking at is a shift cipher. Another thing that I would recommend if you were to be a little bit more advanced in trying to do your cryptography skills is to try to write some code, a script that will automate the process of kind of running through the different values. That will give you some good experience doing a little bit of coding. And It'll also save you the time of having to go and type in every single possible shift value in here when you are needing to decrypt a message. If that is kind of like your area of interest, especially if you're interested in doing cryptography in capture the flag challenges. So that was a quick overview of how to break a shift cipher.